These are the required points to express in your ad. Feel free to paraphrase and speak from your own experience. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you. So, it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. And please make sure, this point, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Do you know the spelling of anchor.fm? ANCHOR.FM. Thank you for your listening. See you. Hello everyone, I'm Richard Gon of Actually Podcast version. This time I'd like to talk about, what is necessary in asset management and what is necessary in succeeding from scratch are totally different. And what I'd like to tell you is that, for example, this is so the information I'm going to tell you is what I get in my country through English language and Japanese language, and so which is why in some cases the information I gave you I'm going to give you might be different from the authentic or the correct version. And anyway, what I'd like to tell you is that asset management and succeeding from scratch are totally different. And this time, the first of all, asset management or raising assets means for example stock trading or real estate business, like and the typical example is Warren Buffett. Mr. Warren Buffett is a type of person is a type of people who could succeed in, for example, stock trading. Mr. Warren Buffett has a lot of stocks, and he has a lot of money. He has a lot of money and he has a lot of wealth. And while people who succeeded from scratch are, for example, Bill Gates, Jeffrey Bezos of Amazon, and Donald Trump, and Mark Zuckerberg, and Jack Ma, and people like them. So those maybe most famous business leaders are successful people who began their own ventures or who began their own businesses from scratch. And while of course Mr. Warren Buffett is really famous, and in this country he's said to be he's said to have succeeded in stockpiling, and he has succeeded by repeating piling small amount of wealth for a long time, which is why he could succeed, which is what is taught in my country. And in this case, what I'd like to tell you is that the difference between those successful people who began their own businesses from scratch and asset management, like Warren Buffett. And first of all, I will explain how to succeed in asset management, and which is I'm really good at. And first of all, what is necessary is not to fail. So when it comes to when it comes to raising your own wealth, what is necessary is not to fail. Not to fail. You can't make mistakes, which is what is the most important stuff when raising your own wealth or your own assets. So what I'm telling you is that what I'd like to tell you is that, so in the case of, for example, stock trading, which is what I'm doing, what I'm mainly doing, and in the case of stock trading, so what is necessary is to buy the stocks of huge companies in most cases, and when to purchase is the time the time the time when the stock price is the stock prices are the lowest prices. You have to focus on when the timing of the lowest prices come. So every country has for how should I say, you know trough and crest, which means sometimes 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 some companies have have higher performances, and but sometimes they have lower performances, concerning which and in the case of stock trading, or in the case of stock prices, companies which aren't doing well have lower stock prices, and companies which are doing well have higher stock prices, which is why maybe real world is more complicated than what I have just told you, but to think simply, so the pattern I have just told you is easy to think. So companies which are not doing well have lower stock prices, and companies which are doing well have higher stock prices. So and of course, the performances of companies change depending on the changes of continuous changes of environments or business situations. Concerning which the prices you have to focus on are the lowest prices, or the lower prices, and lower prices as possible is the is the timing, or is the time you should choose. And of course, to securely pile your own wealth, the companies you have to choose are quite huge companies, and you should choose some companies. You should not invest all the money in just one company. What you should do is to distribute your own money in in some companies, and you know of course, when choosing companies, you can you cannot choose you cannot choose companies in only one market, or in only one industry. So you should choose some companies, and each company should be in different industry each other, which is how you should choose companies, and by which if some company fails, other companies are alive. By which you don't have to worry about failures of your own asset management. So concerning which like which you can avoid severe risks, or severe mistakes, losing all the money you have. And what you have to do is not to lose your own money. What you have to do is to eliminate risks, or eradicate risks, as many risks as possible. And so to enable such a thing, to act risk averse, to act risk averse, what you have to do is to choose the lowest prices, as lower as possible, when buying the stocks of huge companies. And when choosing companies, you should choose companies belonging to different markets, or different industries each other. And this is a succeeding pattern. This is how to succeed in asset management. And the other pattern I explained at first minutes ago is to succeed from scratch, and like famous business leaders have done. So this is a case of and in this pattern, failures are acceptable. In this pattern, which means succeeding from scratch pattern accepts mistakes, which means of course nobody accepts mistakes, and the in reality is really harsh, which is why if you fail, you may become a you may lose money, or you may lose house, or you may lose family. In some cases, you may have to experience, for example, divorces, or losing. Yeah, maybe one of the most famous risk is divorce by caused by your own failures. And for example, in the case of the in the case of the former or the previous president of the United States, who is Donald Trump, Mr. Donald Trump. In the case of Mr. Donald Trump, he has experienced some bankrupts, concerning which some successful people have experienced bankrupts, which is why such people are like some people those and the typical pattern of those successful people who began their own businesses from scratch is like sometimes they can earn, or they can generate a lot, generate a lot of money, but and after which they lose money, which is why they become, for example, homeless people, or people suffering from poverty, which is a typical pattern of this type. And considering which, if you are such a type, it's fine to start your own businesses. So so to succeed, you have to brace yourself for experiencing bankruptcy. So if you could generate, or if you could successfully earn a lot of money, you should you should so expect that or you should expect that failures may come, and you may lose your own money. You should think about that. You should think of that risk of losing money. So if you'd like to succeed from scratch, so considering which of course safer way, or asset management is more recommendable to ordinary people. So if you're a type who can't do such a thing, who can't do asset management, or if you're a type who is suitable for beginning your own businesses from scratch, I think such people should start your own businesses from scratch. And if you think you're ordinary people, if you find yourself normal, I recommend you doing asset management. So in that ordinary case, you should avoid failures or mistakes, which is what I'd like to tell you this time. That's it. Thank you very much for your listening. See you.